I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners would like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence. For a roll call, I'll start with, to my left, Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Shimke.
Here.
Smith. Here. Collis.
Here.
And Culberson.
Here.
All commissioners are present. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, come forward, state your name at the podium.
Wally Bronner, retired old school teacher. Taxes, of course, are a concern to everybody. I recall in probably 1961 when I started teaching, sales tax was like 4%, and everybody seemed to have enough money to go around. Now real estate taxes are eating me alive. In 2017, the wife and I bought a house in Tongi, paid $218 for it. It was appraised at about $215. The next year, appraisal went to $223. I didn't complain. This year, it went to $269. I came up here and got a little adjustment on that, but the fellow told me at the time, said next year it'll go back to at least the $269, maybe more. All of my neighbors are houses like $200,000 range, and they're talking $10,000 to $40,000 increases in their appraised values. So where does this go? What's the end of this? Will the mill levy go down? That's what you folks have determined. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
My name is Jerry Dixon. I'm with Dixon Contracting Services. We are presently helping some of your residents with, or a particular resident with a rebuild after the tornado in May. Come to find out that Leavenworth County does not require any type of building permits or any guidelines for builders to stay to. Where this problem lies with when it comes to an insurance carrier paying for the complete rebuild or repairs on a structure, by you guys not requiring any type of codes for us to follow, it does not, the homeowner, if they want to bring their home up to current codes, has to pay this out of their pocket. If you guys created a letter that said, we expect our property to be rebuilt to 2018 IRC code, building code, this will trigger their policy to pay for those code upgrades. Now, what this allows the builder to do or the contractor to do is give your resident a good product at the end of the day, okay? So as of right now, if I didn't want to put smoke detectors in, CO2 detectors, tamper-proof electrical, redo people's electrical, redo their framing to code, I don't have to, because the insurance company's not paying it. So if the owner wants those type of things, it has to come out of the pocket. So what you guys are doing, I say you guys, that don't mean to be attacking, but what this does in essence is make the owner either go with something that's not to code and have life safety issues and energy efficient issues and so on and so forth, or come out of their pocket in excess of $20,000 to $50,000 just to bring things up to code. So that said, I know you got to do a lot of jumping through a lot of hoops, but something as simple as a letter, and I sent some sample letters to Mark Lowry yesterday of what other municipalities have provided us. And I guess I would urge to you and best interest of your residents to to put something like this together. And if you got any questions, you have to ask, answer.
Oh, I just have questions of staff, but thank you for bringing it. Is that something the county can provide?
I think
A
that,
letter that says that we do expect our properties to be built to?
we haven't had a chance to discuss this yet, but I think it might be difficult for us to put out a letter that says we require you to bring the building back up to code when we don't actually.
Well, we don't require.
Require-
Our expectation.
Or have
would be-
building codes, so I'd have to work with the county councilor.
Okay.
I think that just kind of brings back where I have previously and continue to ask that we begin to look at establishing building codes for the county.
And how many people would it take to inspect, to do building codes enforcement? I guess that's a question for Mr. Joseph.
Well, this has been discussed in the past
Yeah.
a couple of times, so we have kind of a background on it. There are some options out there. One that I had not considered is that we have building code requirements, but is there actually a requirement that we do inspections after the fact, other than the builders are expected to live up to it? But you can also, which with the last time we looked at it, we had proposed contracting out inspection services so that with the permit fee, it covers the inspection services. There's a firm, a company out of Kansas City that does this for several municipalities. So that's an option. We wouldn't have to bring on any staff. We could do it via contractual services.
And I think that's a good option.
User fees, pay for it?
Yeah, so if you have if a roofing job requires an inspection, the fee that we charge covers the inspection.
Hey, you said that the cost increases your cost of the construction by 20,000 to bring it 20 to 50,000? Is that
Just in general, yes.
and what the things you named as smoke detectors and CO2 detectors and energy efficient? What are some of the other things that raise that cost up? That seems like a substantial increase in the cost.
Come back up. Thank you.
So depending on the framing, so in instance, the house we're looking at right now is built in the mid-70s. So we have 2x6 rafters on 2-foot centers. It's not the code. There's no joist hangers.
There you go.
There's so many different things that can increase the building. These people's policy will pay for that. Most insurance policies pay for that. Okay? All they need in order for the insurance company to enact that portion of the policy is have a piece of paper saying Leavenworth County requires houses or structures to be built to a specific code, okay?
But if you're not bringing it up, I mean, are they taking a look at the old blueprints? And I mean,
There's no
how are they going to know if you come in and say, I'm going to replace the house like up to code?
Mhm.
How's the insurance company? Are you saying that they're going to say, no, we don't want it to have the right amount of joists? How is it
Your policy, my policy, their policy pays for what's there.
replacement cost?
Replacement
Which wasn't
cost for
typical.
what is there, like, kind, and quality of materials, okay? That, and type of construction, that's what a policy pays for.
Right.
Right, replacement, not improvement.
Correct. But knowing that they have structures that were built as codes change, most people have an endorsement or a rider in their policy that says, in the event where codes have changed where we need to upgrade what you have, we will pay that up to a certain percentage. Typically, most policies are 10% of what the property is insured for. So in this one, it happens to be $350,000, give or take. So that family has roughly $35,000 worth of code upgrade money available to them that the carrier will pay as long as, and all they need is a letter saying, which I've provided Mark some samples, that in a simple paragraph, we require our house to be built to 2018 IRC, International Residential Code.
Now, do you know in other counties where you've worked, if they don't have building codes, have they still issued you these letters?
No, I haven't, because
You're not-
most people, with the exception of Miami County, for example, on the roofing side, does not require roofs to be built to current code. Therefore, things like ice and water shield, certain things like that, are not required. So carriers do not pay. I, as a contractor, typically put it on because ice damming's a major issue, and I would just endure the cost and then come back and deal with a leak later on because of ice damming. So that's.
Because when you build a new property, you have to warranty it for X amount of time.
Correct. And even on the repair side. So we don't build new structures, I make my living in the repair side of things. So in a new structure, most policies cover the rebuilding of everything to code, but most incidences, most claims deal with that in between, which is we're doing repairs. So in this case, this house has roughly $200,000 worth of repairs required, of which you got 1970s electrical, plumbing, insulation, asbestos, lead.
Well, we've talked about it, but this has been a county that has moved from being rural to being more urban, and we just haven't gotten to that point yet.
And being from Miami County, we've gone through the same thing, and I understand what you guys go through. My dad is also a county commissioner for Miami County, so I understand you don't just make things happen overnight. But this is a situation where you have a lot of residents that are affected that can cost them money or cause them to be shorted on what could be an opportunity to improve their property. And frankly, I could talk about the life safety issues and so on and so forth. That's kind of the major thing.
Well, even if we passed this and backdated it, would it impact the people that were affected by the tornado?
Well, Commissioners, you may issue a backdated letter, but my signature will not be on it.
Backdate. We don't
I'm not
backdate.
saying a backdated letter, but what I'm saying is if we pass this now, would the people that were affected by the tornado be able to?
You'd have to adopt the building code, right?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. David Van Paris, County Councilor. The point Mr. Dixon brings before you is, did you get your name correct? Is one that has been visited several times in the past by county commissions. It's generally met with opposition from either the public or contractors and runs into what I'll call the hurdle of the cost of inspection. And by cost is who hires the inspector, is the inspection process going to delay construction, and which of course increases cost. All of those issues would be raised, I presume, if you were to suddenly bring this up this very morning. Two words Mr. Dixon used, I would suggest need to come into play, and that's life safety. There is a reason these codes have generally been adopted throughout the country, in fact internationally, with respect to what constitutes good, safe construction. And particularly when you're talking about residential structures, I believe that in your minds probably comes into play for the benefit of your constituents. However, I do not believe, you could vote to, we hereby adopt IRC code, whatever the latest iteration of it is. I think at this point in time, though, that would be pure window dressing. I'm not certain if an insurance company would question it. They may just say, well, you adopted it, that's fine. But I think for it to have true benefit, if not in the short term, in the long term, again, this proposal has come before this commission or previous commissions. It won't be reinventing the wheel to bring the matter back to you. The codes are already written. I doubt if you're going to rewrite the National Electric Codes or the IRCs. It's just a question of adopting them. As far as inspection, that could be made purely the duty of the contractor, purely the duty or at the cost incurred in building fees, or it may be a cost that's borne by the general public. But it is an issue that deserves attention, and an incident like this tornado just brings to light the fact that when buildings aren't built to code, there are real consequences.
Quick question, Mr. Dixon. If you submit your set of plans for this replacement, improvement, remodel, use the term of your choosing, to the insurance company, you're suggesting that without a letter from Leavenworth County that requires codes, that they would expect you to build or replace a lesser version of the same plans you've created, meaning they'd rather you not build it to IRC codes so that it saves the individual, you or the insurance company, money?
No, that would be incorrect. The carrier, their actuaries, all that's factored in. So whether or not they pay an extra 10% out on the policy or not, it doesn't make any difference to them. The quality of it, at the end of the day, really doesn't make any difference to them. What they do
That's
is stick to the
unfortunate.
letter they stick to the letter of the policy, and that is, we will pay you for 2x6 rafters on 2-foot centers and insulation that you currently have, or smoke detectors or not, or whatever it may be, knob and tube wiring versus, versus roll metal wiring, so on and so forth. They really,
But you're gonna have a set
there's
of
no
plans.
emotion to it on the insurance side. So for them, a letter is okay, because they're not gonna get into inspections. The carrier's not gonna come out and go, well, you didn't put your wiring in a junction box like it should be, okay? So they're not there to inspect. They just need the documentation so they can enact a certain portion of the policy that allows them to write a check for certain things. And it's that simple. I've been doing insurance-related work for 10-plus years, and we do it on a daily basis. So I've dealt with hundreds of different carriers and adjusters and policy issues, so.
And they all require a letter from the city or the county
Yes, in order to enact it. So,
versus just an estimate?
pardon me.
Versus an estimate from a qualified contractor?
Now, they can take an estimate from a qualified contractor, but you gotta remember, the carrier's writing their own, and they have, not to bore you with anything, but be quick, they use a certain software package that writes a claim.
Sure.
That writes the estimate. We use that same software package, so we come to an agreement on what's there. So I can come in, and they're paying out $200,000, and if I wanna come in and give them all these code upgrades for the same amount of money, they don't care. Okay? But that just puts extra burden on the homeowner to go find a contractor who may or may not do that. Versus our policies are written in such where they don't want to, carrier doesn't, they're not out to find the lowest price. They're trying to find a contractor who will work with them and come to an agreed scope of work and an agreed price. So that's the reason why we invest in the same software that they use. So we're talking apples to apples, and we're not arguing over price of something, but we argue over what needs to be done. So when we write up a roof, be framed with 2x6 rafters, they're writing the same thing. So if I write it 2x8 rafters on 16-inch centers, well, now we have a difference, and they'll say, we're not paying for that.
Unless it's required by code.
We
And
don't have codes.
then they will increase the amount that they're willing to pay to have that work done.
Right. So when I write up that estimate, I write up, here's what's here, here's the code differences. And then they, okay, we agree.
But is that IRC code, is that not like the standard of care? Or would they consider, I mean, so,
They,
you know what I'm saying?
You're way below that.
Yes, I mean,
correct. IRC is kind of what everybody uses in most parts of the United States.
so an insurance carrier, you're saying that if the property is being replaced and it was below the standard of care, that's all they're gonna pay for?
Correct. They're gonna pay for exactly what's there. That's what you're.
Even though it was below the standard of care?
Yes.
So, now that gets back to make a second run at the question I earlier asked, which I bungled.
No?
But, if we did pass this letter and approve this letter, that would not necessarily apply to the people that were affected by the tornado.
Well, Commissioners, I don't think it could apply, well, I can't speak for the insurance company, how they might handle various claims. If this board were to, for example, adopt the following motion this morning, I move that we adopt IRC code, whichever number is current. You could adopt that. You could adopt it this morning. I think as far as whether that would really provide benefit to the individual property owners due to the Linwood storm, that would be probably a case-by-case basis. Whether you do that or not, though, I would just suggest the issue of codes needs to be, or maybe you may wish to consider. As far as adopting the code this morning, you could make that motion could be made and passed, and in which case technically Leavenworth County would have adopted the code. I doubt if anybody other than Mr. Dixon in this room could probably recite you any part of that code.
The 2012 I can.
Well,
But just taking that action, you're saying would benefit a lot of the people that are rebuilding the,
Most policies, that is part of what's being paid. So there's a handful of carriers that exclude code upgrade unless you specifically ask for it and pay for it. Most of us, our policies, it includes it. State Farm being one of them, which State Farm writes a lot of business in this area, American Family. So.
I don't think it'd be appropriate for us to pass building codes today without it being on the agenda.
Correct.
It needs to be on the agenda, it needs to be discussed
And maybe a work session on it?
in a work session. Absolutely right.
I just,
But as far as, I don't know what the county gives when they give a building permit. Does it say anything, Mr. Joseph, about the county's space?
The building permit is just for, just to make sure the siding of the building is in such a way that it's, setbacks and everything will be looked at. That's the only thing that we look at.
And unfortunately, we can't just all of a sudden pass building codes.
No.
It has to be on the agenda, it has to be discussed, and it may take something like this to bring it to light.
right.
Well, and since we brought this up, I know this was on our radar to talk about and even get a work session going on building codes, but I would in no way support building codes in the county. So this is a big can of worms. 3 years ago, we started down this road, and 300 people showed up at the planning meeting, and representing my constituents, I can tell you, I would not support building codes in the county. There's a reason people live in the county. If they want building codes, then they build in the city. This is another example of the government telling people what to do and not giving them choices. So if they want to live in the county, one of the reasons is so they don't have building codes.
We have to
And I think
disagree
I
on that.
agree. Philosophically, I agree with that, but on the other hand, there is this issue of what the minimum standard of care is when you're in his position.
Make
And
it a
I think
choice.
that's what you're dealing with is.
Then you make
that
it a
you wanna-
choice.
You want to have the county saying that in our county, you at least have to meet the minimum standard of care, and then that would allow you to recover additional resources for the.
True, and to be honest, I'm not here on my behalf, because we do this for a profit, and this is the first time in my 10-year career of doing this, that this situation has come up to this extent. Roofing's one thing, the hit to me is minor when we just put the right materials on. But when we're talking, in this case, a $210,000 project that in all honesty, it would cost another $30,000, $30,000 to do it properly. That's the reason why I'm here today, just because what I see is something that's with this group's power to change.
And Jeff, the building code, even if you adopted building codes, it could be at just the minimal level that the people in the county would,
Could be.
And it could even be done on a temporary basis or written such to where when a major catastrophe happens or whatever.
We'll have to discuss all this in
Yeah.
a work session. We really need to get going down the road. We've got a schedule, and we are way off of it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? And we'll close public comment, move on to administrative business.
I do have one item I'd like to discuss with the board real quick and hopefully get some direction or permission. I'd like to go out and hire a project management firm to administer all of our sales tax related projects that we have going on. This is something I discussed 2 years ago. At the time, it didn't go forward, but I do believe we're in building, 20 miles of roads, 2 major road projects under construction, 1 getting ready to be under construction. I think we're at that point where we need to have this, and I'd like the authority to go forward and get a firm to do the project management on those projects. It would be paid for out of the sales tax since they are sales tax related projects.
Commissioners have any questions of Mr. Lawford about this? I think we've been talking about it for the last couple of years, and it's actually, we're to the point right now.
I just think it'd be good to be able to review the bids as a group, whether that's a work session, however that might occur, rather than, I'd like to know who the project management firms are and have some ability to influence our overall decision there.
It won't be a bid process because it's professional services, just so you know, so it won't be a bid process. It'll be a selection committee for a request for qualifications or request for proposals. Typically, that's reviewed by staff and a recommendation is made back to the commission on who we are selecting. For something like this, we would reach out to the firms that are on our list of contractors or firms that are doing work for the county currently. That's typically how it would happen, just so you have a note. But because of where we're at, I do want to expedite the process. Sure. And so I probably will reach out to firms we're currently doing business with versus soliciting firms we don't know.
So you're open to having a commissioner on that committee?
I mean, we can.
I don't think it's a matter of are we open to it. Is there a commissioner who would like to sit on the selection committee? I mean.
We have, in the past, we have allowed commissioners, I shouldn't say allowed, there have been commissioners who have participated in the past.
Yeah, I thought we kind of did that, and we actually picked whichever commissioner had to be in that district.
Yes.
The purchasing policy changed a couple of years ago, actually, where that's no longer required. It used to be a required thing, it's no longer required. But certainly not something that, I mean, you just have to be careful about getting more than two of you. So.
Well, how about we have Commissioner Shimke be on your committee?
Works for me.
You're in.
Great.
Careful what you wish for.
Touche.
Yeah. Well played, Chad. Anything else?
That's all I had.
So is that a possibility that we need a work session on building codes?
I would say, sounds like it to me.
Definitely.
I mean,
Well, I understand what
Yeah,
you're
we need to have a
saying,
work
but I think
session.
we should talk about it at least.
Yeah. We will schedule a work session relatively quickly on building codes in the county.
Building codes and sewer districts. Some of
That's
our,
right.
our work sessions. Anything else in administrative business? Has commissioners had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Any questions, concerns? There's not a whole lot of bills in there, is there? And I do have some OCDs and so on. So I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 All right. Do we have county appraiser ready? How are you this morning, Mr. Weber?
All right, how you doing?
Morning.
This morning I've got, the first thing, I just have two vehicles declared surplus property, request declared surplus property. We purchased request for this, but I didn't get, when I got the approval to purchase these vehicles a while back, I didn't get the other ones declared surplus. It took a while to order them and get them in, so I wrote it out there. Both these vehicles have some maintenance issues, and we just needed to be able to put them, for the, put them out there and to be sold. So I'm requesting a motion to declare the 2005 Ford Taurus and 2008 Ford Fusion surplus property.
2005 must have been a big year for county vehicle purchases, because it seems like that's what's coming in here. They must have been really good vehicles also to last this long. Commissioners have any questions on Mr. Weber's surplus vehicles? And I'll entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Weber to surplus his vehicles.
So moved.
And that'd be on Purple Way?
Yeah, it'll be through the
Purple
uh,
Way, yeah.
Public Works Department is the one that's
Right.
handling all that now.
Do we need to list what they are, years or models or
We did.
anything? Okay, yeah, I mean, in the.
I've
Oh,
got-
the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, yes. Was that your motion?
Yeah, I forgot what he said they were, though.
2005 and a 2008.
2005 Ford
Ford
Taurus,
Fusion and
2008
Taurus.
Ford Fusion.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the surplus vehicles? Voting?
Aye.
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 Second item is have some requests for abatement. These are all due to the tornado, the homestead. Just a little, last time I came here and talked about it during my quarterly report, there were some concerns, some issues about, outbuildings. I included what the definition of homestead is on my request for board action down there, what that comes straight from the statute. The state of Kansas says that does not include outbuildings. Had some talks with some other counties. Now, Douglas County is not issuing any abatements on outbuildings. They indicated they have not in the past, indicated, and they wanted to keep it consistent. Keep in mind, what we're doing here is we're prorating 2019 taxes only. When, for 2020, for next year, it'll be whatever's there January 1st. So if they built a brand-new building, that's when it'll go on. If they build a brand-new building today, it's not going to go on until 2020. So in history is we don't prorate them on either. What's there going to be 2020 is just what's there, whatever, if it's a house, if they haven't rebuilt the house, it'll just be the land. If it's a house that's partially complete, it'll go on as a partially complete house. If it's done, it'll be what it, if it's fixed up, it'll be just back pretty much to what it was, with some exceptions. Obviously, if a house was in poor condition before, it's probably not poor condition now. But that's the way it worked. In the past, we have not done outbuildings. Commissioner Culbertson lost an outbuilding due to fire a few years back. He wasn't, we didn't do any of those. I just want some understanding, I guess. And so the ones I'm presenting today don't have any outbuildings that are an issue. Either they had outbuildings that weren't destroyed or they didn't have any outbuildings. So
I'm sure I'm oversimplifying because I seem to have a knack for that. If someone has a parcel, and let's say their taxes are $3,000 a year, and the storm has then, well, I'm saying that's the check that they write to county,
Yeah,
which
okay.
is the number that they care about.
right.
It's wiped out, they're rebuilding, it's over 50% loss, whatever the formulas are, I'm not really that concerned with. So, 6 months of the year, that assessed value and amount that's owed is fair. The second half of the year, while they're rebuilding because everything's gone, I see all these different values and formulas and I just get super confused. So I'm like, if it's $3,000 typically is what they're paying the county, and the second half of the year, they don't have a structure because they're rebuilding and everything else, it would seem to me that, again, a $1,500 correction, adjustment, use the terminology, would make the most sense. Again, as of January 1, everything that's there will be reassessed, right? But when I think abatement, we go into these different values and formulas, and I get super confused, because generally an abatement is 100% or 50%, it's not necessarily on a value, it's the amount that's actually being paid to the county. Again, I'm going with a net number. It's the one that
Right.
hits their checkbook and they care about.
So right now on the houses that I'm proposing, they will be abated, 60% of their taxes on that home will be abated off.
In total.
So it'll receive a 60% reduction because that's as of the day of the disaster. It works out to be 60%.
Right, there's usually,
If you're
there's a home
prorating.
value, then there's a land value, and ultimately it all rolls up into one figure, one check.
Yeah, right. But we're just abating the home portion, the portion on the house. is what we're abating. The rest of it is not getting abated. The land.
And again, the house could be valued at $118,000, but the replacement cost is $225,000. Could be.
Right. It's our value, not what the replacement cost is.
Right.
What we're abating off. Because you can't abate what wasn't there in the first place.
I think what we're trying to figure out today, what's a homestead? Is a homestead the home or the home and buildings?
It's the home.
You're saying under the
Is it just the
statute,
home?
it is simply the dwelling.
That's
Under the
as,
statute.
yeah,
Right,
that's what they're
by state
saying.
statute.
Right, and I'm making the argument that it's the parcel, it's the entirety.
Has that, when, in your conversations with these other counties, did they
Yeah.
ever, has there been cases where the state has come in and abated the?
But it's not
outside-
the state that does it. It's the county commissions in each county. This is a state law, but it's, the state doesn't come in and abate them.
So
But
is it the
no,
power
there has
of the
been,
county
I don't
to-
believe there's been a case where outbuildings have been abated.
Do we have that authority?
That'd be Mr.
There.
Baker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this issue has been brought to my attention and Mr. Lawfrey's attention. I would, two observations. The first is you're taxed on the total value of your property. That includes the land and all improvements, which includes the house, outbuildings, things of that nature. That's what constitutes your valuation. It might make sense that an abatement would apply to the overall valuation, but that is not Kansas law. Kansas law is that you may only abate taxes when you have explicit authority to abate taxes. And in this case, the way the statute is written is your explicit authority only extends to an abatement for the loss in value to the residence itself. We've looked at other jurisdictions. Under the way Kansas law is written, outbuildings do not qualify for that abatement. I would suggest that if the board were to abate that, there is a strong possibility that the State Department of Revenue would possibly question the entire abatement, which could lead to a very complicated situation and the property owner getting no tax relief, at least in the near future. The issue of whether outbuildings and other improvements should be subject to the abatement is one that the state legislature I would suggest is going to have to address. As far as your authority, the state will not come in an abatement. That responsibility has been transferred to you as a local government, but your discretion is limited very strictly by what is in that state statute, and I would suggest to you that it is limited only to the residents. As unseemly and illogical as that may be, that is the way that law is written.
And Bob, you've been in close contact with PVD on these tornado properties?
Yeah,
haven't
I've talked to them a few times.
you? Yeah, I figured. Because they have other counties, Douglas County.
Douglas County,
Had the same
and I've been
issue.
talking with them.
Yeah, so I'm sure they've worked out, how to handle it.
We were trying to see if we could handle it, the same way.
Well, that gets back to, I think at our last meeting, Representative Dove had said that he had assurances from the speaker that they were going to bring this right away to the floor.
And Commissioner Steben, if the state legislature so chose, they could make it retroactive to tax year effect for 2019. But that issue is out of your hands.
Very good. Add that to your list when you go to the White House. Let's see.
Listed.
And it is unfortunate that somebody's barn or outbuilding's gone and it's still on the tax roll. I mean, it's very unfortunate.
It really,
Or
But I
go
guess
from dwelling on
if
a
you-
property to no longer being able to
Yeah,
live on a
it's-
property
Yeah,
and only getting a small portion of that abatement, that seems wrong. So,
talk to your representatives.
Interesting question related to that. There's some of these homes that, I don't know if any of ours came into play, but there's some of these houses that are like a barn, but they have the dwelling in the
Then-
structure. Then, in
yeah.
that case,
That's their home, though. Whatever
Okay.
subsidy, it allows whatever is your home, that's the homestead then, that
I don't know if you had any of those cases.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I have one sitting on my desk right now. So, but that's just a home like any other home, just built differently.
So always put a bedroom in your barn.
Right.
All right. So the ones I've got here, none of these do include outbuildings that are of issue, were of issue. There's 9 of them here, I believe.
And each one of these is going to require a separate motion? I think it does.
Okay.
Commissioners, to have the greatest level of assurance that we can provide you that these abatements will be honored by the Department of Revenue and provide the relief to the property owners, given the requirement of explicit authority to abate taxes, that it be done each by separate motion.
So does commissioners have any more questions of Mr. Weber?
I have just one.
Okay, go ahead.
You had the meeting with the residents down there, how many,
About
citizens
20,
did you interact with?
yeah, about 28 people came in. There was a couple of those that didn't have, they weren't even close. They only had a few $1,000s worth of damage that weren't gonna, they have to reach that 50% mark. There was a few that come in that were close, but most are getting into it and they're finding more stuff, and so they're having to go back. Some people are getting structural engineers. They weren't able to initially get structural engineers in. They had to wait to get it cleaned up. So they had initial estimates, but they're getting more estimates, and so some of those will come over the top. They may have been, $10, $15, $30,000 short, but they're, there are some people that they weren't even sure if they were going to tear it down yet or not. If they were going to get a whole new structure or not. It's just that they're just working through that process. So I've got about 40 total, include these applications, but there's a number of them I'm waiting for more information on. But it did work out pretty well.
And Bob, excuse me, it's not a straight line formula, but a lot of these cases, this is an assessed value that they're getting relief from. So you're talking about a couple $100 in a lot of these cases. This isn't off the tax roll, $15,000. It's an assessed value.
Yeah. This is like the beginning number. There's
Right.
still times 11.5%, times the mill levy, times.
Right.
Yeah.
So that first one would be about $291. That was a fairly low valued property. But the highest one on here is roughly $2,000.
Oh, these are assessed value, Bob, not
These are
appraised?
assessed
Okay.
values, not
Okay.
appraised
So,
values.
One less step.
And the mill levy is about .116 something in that area, generally.
Any more questions, Mr. Weber? I'll start entertaining motions.
Make a motion, we approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $2,511 for tax ID number 1-20570.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the abatement? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. I make a motion, we approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $25,113 for tax ID number 1-32705.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 I make a motion, we approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $5,772 for tax ID number 1-20119.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. Make a motion to approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $17,976 for tax ID number 1-27131.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 I make a motion when we approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $5,203 for tax ID number 1-20536.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. I make a motion when we approve abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $9,443 for tax ID number 1-28354.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Make a motion we approve the abatement of assessed value for 2019 year of $9,525 for tax ID number 1-31852.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. I make a motion we approve the abatement of 2019 year tax for $8,982 for tax ID number 1-19958.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Voting?
Aye.
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 Make a motion we approve the abatement of 2019 tax year $15,426 for tax ID number 1-20560.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. We already did the vehicles, right?
Yes.
Yep.
We good?
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Weber.
Bob.
And thank you, Jeff, for doing all the.
Well done.
Well done. All right. All right, are we ready for our planning and zoning vacancy on the planning commission?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
As I mentioned during the last meeting, we have a vacancy on the Planning Commission, and it's, the vacancy is on the first district. So we're asking for direction from the board to do the press release and go forward with the advertisement.
And the reason we're asking is because it's one of the guaranteed appointments from that district. So if Commissioner Culbertson already has somebody in mind, we don't need to do the press release because it will be at his discretion on who is recommended for appointment. If he doesn't, then we could definitely do the press release.
And to save us time and money and effort, I do have somebody
Good.
that agreed to do it, so.
Good.
Yep.
So if you want to get
Are
them.
you willing to appoint that person today? Or do you need to twist his arm a little more?
Usually we get a form so the rest of the board can see who it is.
Okay.
But if
Yeah.
it doesn't have
But
to
if
be
it's
that way.
his
It's just a-
appointment, we don't really have a say in it.
Yeah. If there's not a hurry, though, I think I would like a little time to
Okay.
get that set up.
And we can have staff get you the form for that person.
Okay.
Will they,
Be ready for that
will it
next
be a
week.
similar application, Jeff, to those
Yes.
that have
Yeah, it's the same
applied before, so
application.
we can at least
Yes.
understand background and stuff? That'd be awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. Great.
So we can have that on the agenda for next week?
And actually, it was a person that applied before,
great.
so we already have his
Okay.
resume that's from the week before, when we're appointing people. So we've got all his information already.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We got it done early. I didn't think we would.
I thought we were gonna run late.
I thought we were
too,
going to run late. Do we need to wait till 10 o'clock to start?
Well, since we did publish that as the start time, we probably should wait.
So we'll take a 10-minute recess?
Sure.
Well, we'll adjourn your regular.
Yeah, you have to adjourn.
Okay.
And we'll come back for the.
We'll go ahead and adjourn, unless anybody has any business. Well, Lisa, I do, what do we all got going on?
City council meeting last week, they talked about two things I thought was interesting, is the mill levy they proposed to keep flat.
Flat.
And their trash service for residents is gonna go up.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting.
You're going to go to JCAB this afternoon?
Yes, going to JCAP this afternoon and went to the city commission meeting last night. They reviewed their audit, which was an interesting process.
Okay. I'm also going to go to Ashland, to JCAB. I went to Baser last week, and I'm going to try to go to the The call to pray, we're at the Christian Life Worship Church on Friday night at 6 o'clock, praying for communities and everything.
And the final mental health task force meeting is tomorrow.
You have a mental health task force meeting?
Tomorrow, it's the final, I think it's the final one for the,
Okay.
before they
Where they come in
try
for
to come,
budget?
get on the thing for scheduling.
Okay.
Oh, and I spoke at the International Officers Luncheon.
Yeah,
The
yesterday
only-
we went to
the
that,
only-
yeah.
The only question I got was about trash.
Okay, well, that's a good.
And I got
And
to
you
go
spoke on
hear him
Monday.
speak.
And we spoke on Monday, oh, that's right, and we had the meeting Monday. Anyways, you got anything exciting going on, Commissioner?
I went to the Tonganoxie City Council meeting on Monday, and they're gonna most likely keep their mill levy flat, is what I hear. Am I right about that?
What's happening, Commissioner?
You're most likely keeping your mill levy flat?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what, anyway, I attended their meeting, and I also attended Jeff's speech. He's a very good speaker.
There is, yep,
When there's lunch involved.
and there's lunch.
And there was a very good lunch.
We
And
found
then
out-
Vicki and I are going to the
White House.
event next week, and I'm trying to work with Congressman Watkins' office to schedule us a time to meet with various, like, Department of Transportation, Department, maybe they can help us coordinate actually meeting with some of these.
Federal highway?
Well, I think Vicki's got it on about the bridge, and maybe we can
That's not
Okay.
federal.
talk about transportation
Well, it
funding
is.
and
I think it could be.
Hopefully.
maybe our tornado.
I think Commissioner Culbertson actually has had something for a long time that it has been one of his topics that he was hoping that the two of you might bring up while you're at the White
Bring that
House.
up.
Yeah, we just need the list. Give us
That's
a list.
Yeah,
and
the
we'll-
PILT funding
Yep.
and the 152 bridge.
Right, just get us a list.
Yes.
Right. That's why you're going.
That's right.
And we found out the chef is the same at the International Officers as the Rotary, so.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
And we found out the chef is the same for the International Officers Luncheon as the Rotary, so.
I'm sure you.
It's
He said
on.
he'd be coming to
It's
you
on.
with you next time.
I didn't know that before.
Anyways, okay, then we'll adjourn.